working with your spouse. Some people say,
Mhm.
I can never work with my spouse.
So you can lose yourself because with business owners, you never turn off. I think that you have to have good communication with each other. Set aside a time that is strategically meant to deal with business things.
I do want to jump right in because, like I said, there's so much that we can share about you. So I don't know if you want to just do a brief introduction, anything else that I did share.
Just very briefly, I grew up in South Carolina and I'm a Christian. I would say that would be my first title that I would give myself. I'm a Christian. I'm a wife. I am a mother of two kids. I have two kids that are 10 and 14. And I am a sister, a cousin, a best friend, all the things that many hats that many women actually wear at any given time in their lifespan, caregiver, all of that. On top of that, I have a degree in chemistry, PhD in chemistry. So I have my doctorate and I did some fellowships at Johns Hopkins School of Medicine. I became a professor there, assistant professor in 2012. So really just grateful. I stood on a lot of shoulders to get to this point. I'm so grateful. It's so much. We'll get into a lot of this today, but just really grateful to be at this point in life where I'm able to create residual income and really perfect some wealth building strategies that I'm so excited to share with other people. Anywhere I go, I try to be a light and I try to bring light with me. I try to bring positivity with me. And so hopefully this call will be the same where we can share with each other, but also share positive light with one another as well.
So let's just start because there's so much to talk about. Let's start because my thing is to always encourage
Mhm,
people to make your move in life. And you
mhm.
have done so many different things. Can you share a little bit about how did you start that first big goal that you had in life? I don't know if it was to be a doctor, or if it was to be an entrepreneur.
Mhm.
What was that first big goal and how did you start and make that decision to do it? And what were your first steps?
Yes, I've always been in love with education. So my mom will always make a joke and say, "Oh my God, you've been in school your whole life." But I've always loved education. I've always loved learning. So I think my first moves were really around being educated. And so doing the things I loved chemistry, I loved working in cancer therapeutics. So I loved those things. And so I did the things that I really loved. I think that there's a difference in love and passion. So I've always been passionate about singing and I've always been passionate about theater. But those two things, according to my parents, were not always careers that were going to be able to sustain me financially.
Mhm, mhm.
And so, like many people in my age range, I'm a kid of the 70s, we were given some options. My parents said either you can go to college or you can learn a trade. And for me, it was like, where are you going to college? It wasn't really a choice. It was like, where are you going? And that kind of started me on the path of knowledge and being able to be a curator of knowledge, if you will. And so along the way, I've just learned so many things about life and about different types of disease states. Though that was more of my education piece. I think after college, I started learning more about relationships and the importance of being trustworthy and the importance of having long-term relationships and people that you can rely on. So I think that's when I really started to build my Rolodex of people that I was going to do life with.
Mhm,
And so that kind of moves me into, like you say, moving. So my move for education and then moving into more relationship building
mhm.
was the second phase for me. And so that part really helped me to understand more about what you can bring to the table, what your traits are, what's positive for you, how you can give someone something that's positive for them as well. So that was my second move. So that was move number two.
So
Hmm.
at the relationships, and then I want to talk about two things today because
Yeah.
so I want to talk about the you talked about earlier about wealth building and multiple streams of income.
Yeah.
And then I don't know if you want to share, I know that you had a setback in life.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I would say so. That was a huge, it was some years ago, maybe 2017. I was in a really terrible accident and I ended up just exploding my ankle, if you will, dislocated my talus bone, really bad accident. And I ended up having to do subsequently having to do 7 or 8 surgeries around that accident. And every time I'd have to have surgery, I'd be in a wheelchair for a period of time. So there was about 3 years there for me that I went from being on top of the world and feeling like, okay, I'm doing exactly what I'm supposed to be doing, to being disabled. And it was really a life slap to me because, and people who have gone through this can definitely understand, there's so many emotions that go along with you not being able to do for yourself. I grew up in the country. We had to fend for ourselves. If you wanted something to eat, you made your own, food. I started cooking when I was super young, like 10, 11 years old. I could make homemade biscuits before I was 13. So I really grew up in the country where we learned to be self-sufficient. And with this injury, there was so much I could not do. And so at the time, my daughter was 2 years old. My firstborn daughter was 5. So my babies were still babies when this happened. And so I remember, just as a side story, I remember we had just moved and they wanted to go out for Halloween. So they got in their costumes and they were so excited. And I'm in a wheelchair. So I'm like, you guys go out. I'll just stay home and give candy to the kids. They would not hear it. They would not hear it. And my husband was like, babe, they're not going to let you stay at home. So you just need to go ahead and get yourself together to go. At the time, we didn't have a motorized scooter. And my husband literally pushed me around the neighborhood in this wheelchair. And he's sweating and huffing in the back, but trying to make it happen so that my kids could have a normal experience for Halloween. Mm-hmm. And so I learned that in this time phase for me of being disabled, I'm learning how to restore my joy, how to rejoin life. I think sometimes when really difficult things happen to us, we don't know how to get back to that joy. We don't know how to get back to the happy moments. We don't know how to rejoin our families for family vacations. We just huddle away. And I've been there. You just huddle away and say, you guys, it's too much for me to go. You guys go ahead and go. I'm just going to stay home. I don't want to have to deal with the wheelchair. But I get it. I absolutely get it. I went through that really hard moment in life. My husband stood by my side. My kids, we tried to make life as normal as possible for them. But old people will say, you don't look like what you've been through. So I am definitely a poster child for that, because God has definitely restored my joy. He's restored my happiness. I have joy in my countenance. When I see people, I'm happy to see them. They know that they're genuinely important to me. I am grateful to be able to show up as my authentic self. When I show up and walk in a room, I know that God goes before me. I know that he shifted the room for me. And I know the power that I hold, that is inside of me, the Holy Spirit. I know that power. And I actually wrote a book about it. It's going to be, it's going to be coming out hopefully by December. We're doing edits, but it's called The Art of Long Suffering. You know how we always talk about fruit of the spirits. And I said, one of the first things I mentioned of my titles was Christian. So in the Bible, they talk about the fruit of the spirit being love, joy, peace, patience. And they have all these beautiful attributes of fruit of the spirit. And at the very end, there's a word that's called long suffering. Mm-hmm. And everybody kind of skips over this. So did I. I did the same thing. Until you go through an experience that is not over in a day or a week or months or a year, whether it be the loss of a child that you just can't seem to get over, whether it's the loss of a spouse, whether it's the loss of a marriage, in divorce, it could be the loss of a job, the disability, like my situation, something that just doesn't go away easily. And you have to suffer through that, and it doesn't seem like it's getting any better. That is long suffering. And biblically, there is an anointing that is provided to you to be able to be a long sufferer. Not everybody can handle it. Not everybody is given that burden to carry to suffer something long term. But the name of the book is called Art of Long Suffering. And so I will have some things on social media about it, hopefully towards the end of the year. But it definitely is a story of encouragement. But I'm very honest and raw about the experiences, because you do have some low moments. But I am here to tell you that it is possible for you to move past that. It is possible for you to regain your joy. But get the book when it comes out.
And I was going to ask you, and I don't want to steal any thunder from the book, but I know you talked about your faith. I know prayer. I know you had your husband, your children.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Were there any conversations that you just had to have with Dwella in the prayer closet, or?
Yes. Yes. Counseling is important. I saw a counselor for about 5 months, once a week for 5 months.
Mhm.
And talking through the experience was really so important to me. So
Mhm.
having a talk therapist, because there's some things when you go through a really rough moment, you don't always feel comfortable being raw and honest with everybody. For me, I felt, okay, my husband's already carrying so much for the family. Okay, I can't really talk about this with my kids. And then I'm one of those people in my family that my family just expects me to be okay.
Mhm.
And even though, like, I would say most of the time, the first maybe 3 months, 4 months of you needing people, they're willing to listen. They're willing to, what do you need? How can I help? By 6 months, a lot of those people are no longer there. By the time you get to 1 year and things are no different and you're still in a wheelchair and you're having to figure things out, the number goes down. So by the time you're at the end of that first or second year, you really are by yourself.
Mhm.
And so the people that you really thought will be there for you and stand in the gap for you are no longer there. Either they're tired emotionally or they're tired physically or they don't have the time to do it. So that counseling really helped me to understand that I will have limitations. One nugget that my counselor gave me, she had me to do this thing called a values questionnaire, basically my core values. And I
Mhm.
have that in the book for you as well. But you had you to go through and look at your core values, and you have to look at who you were before this thing happened to you. So before your accident, before the divorce, before you lost your job, before you lost your kid, whatever the case might be,
Mhm.
it looks at what was important to you before. So for me, my core values were I love to have fun. Core values was authenticity. My core value, another one was being honest and trustworthy, and joy. And so those things were all core values to me. And so she said, what happens is when something happens in your life and it just pulls the rug from under you, she said, just imagine if you have two houses, one house sits on the left of the field, one house sits on the right of the field, and you have two friends that are there. So you're a friend on this side, and the other person is your friend on the other side. If you're constantly visiting each other back and forth, you eventually walk a trail, right? And there's no grass on that trail that you walked because you've made a clear path from one house to the other.
Mhm.
And so she asked me, she said, what is something that you have not done since this accident happened? I said, I have not sang one note since this accident. She said, singing is like that. She said, you used to go back and forth so easily to singing. She said, now you have to basically create a path over to singing. She said, even if you don't want to sing anyway. She said,
Mhm.
even if it's only 2 or 3 notes, sing anyway. She said, the more you go back and forth across that path, the more that path will become flattened and you'll see a clearer path from one thing, from yourself to that thing that you were missing. So that was such a great piece of sage advice. And I still use that today.
So what you made me think about was, like, I've heard people say that if you lose someone or the things that you happen when you're talking about that period of time, everybody's there right there at the beginning. So I just
Mm-hmm.
want to encourage anybody that's watching this to make yourself a note on the calendar to at least check in with people 3, 4, 6 on down the road, so that we're not just all bombarding people when something happens, but then
We do that. We do that, right? Because
right,
when something happens, everybody's there. When a funeral
exactly.
happens, you have extended family,
Mhm.
everybody's around, but eventually people leave and
Mhm.
eventually people stop calling.
Mhm.
And I think it's important that if you are, I don't think that everybody has the same calling.
Mhm.
I think that some people have a calling to be compassionate and
Mhm.
some people have a calling to reach out and check in. That is something I love to do often. Like I'll just, if somebody runs across my mind, I'll just shoot a text, hey, how's it going today? But
Mhm.
not everybody does that. And you'll be surprised that if you're one of those people who is a community person, you're a person that really wants to reach out and want to connect and you want to check in on other people. Most people think you're okay, so
Mhm.
that you do not get a lot of people that check in on you. So you're shaking your head like you know exactly what I'm talking
I've
about.
heard that a lot before. The people that are the outgoing, those are the people don't think they need to be checked on and do so. Just want to encourage anybody to check in. It's been a while. I think I love that you said that if somebody just runs across your mind, you just send them a text. And I try to do that too. Just let's keep in touch with each other, because
Mhm,
in this age of social media and this age of texting and things like that, it's good to also just pick up the phone or just have some type of personal conversation. So
mhm, mhm. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, so now I want to transition into, let's talk about the different streams of income and wealth building.
Okay.
And also
Okay.
want to talk about your, and you pick it up from where you want to, where you want to start. I won't take it.
Okay, so we'll talk about real estate first because that was really the first. My husband and I had traditional jobs when we first got married. We've been married now. This is 23 years this year. We've been married. And so yes, I got married at 15. No, but yeah, just 15. I was 15 when I got married. But when we got married, we both had traditional jobs. And so maybe I think our first house that we had was a townhouse. And it was like a 2-bedroom townhouse with a little kitchen, living room, dining room. And when we got ready to build our first family home, we were like, hey, we're going to go ahead and see if we can rent out this townhouse and maybe this can be some residual income. And this was back in 2000. So back in 2003, there weren't a lot of brown people doing real estate investing. And so we tried to ask around the people that we knew that we thought were business savvy. We said, hey, how would I do a real estate investment? How would I turn this house into an investment? And so we got a lot of hand waving where people would say, oh, real estate investing is so hard and I'm not sure it's going to be right for you. And maybe later in life, you guys can do it. So they gave us all the reasons that we should not be doing real estate investing, but nobody really gave us answers. And we went to lots and lots of people of all races, Black, white, Chinese, Indian, whoever. We just were asking questions. Can you give us insight? Can you help us to be able to structure this properly? So we ended up doing a Section 8. And just because out of convenience, Section 8 was really easy to do, and the government paid you your check every month. And we did the Section 8. And then we probably had maybe 5 or 6 properties at the time. And then in 2007, 2008, the bubble burst. There was a lot of houses being sold. We end up having to sell some houses because they were not being rented out. And so that was a really rough start for us because really the first 2 years we tried to do more in real estate, but we just were learning from School of Hard Knocks. There's a lot of stuff we didn't know. There's a lot of stuff that people were not willing to share. And it seemed to be really secretive. There wasn't YouTube and all this stuff that people can just go online and you can take a whole course on YouTube now, right? Real estate investing. You can do, yeah, anything you want to do. You learn how to fix a car, you can learn how to change your oil, whatever on YouTube.
Yes.
Back then, there was not that opportunity to learn something so easily online. And we went through the School of Hard Knocks. We made a lot of mistakes. And then eventually we started to get our groove. We started to understand more about the business. And I would say between that time, which like the 2007, 2008, our credit scores took a beating. The houses we had to sell much lower than what we wanted to. So it was really rough on us as new business owners and new investors to try to navigate that time frame. So now fast forward to where we are now, I guess maybe in 2020, we started to see more people were interested in doing real estate. And probably on any given day, my husband and I would have conversations with people, about 4 or 5 conversations a day with people. How do you get into real estate? How do you do real estate? What are the types of real estate? And so we ended up having calls every day, like we'd be on the phone 5 hours, both of us. And so we started to talk, and I was like, babe, you're spending a lot of time having the same conversations I'm having. I said, I'm just going to create a curriculum that if people want to learn to be investors, that we're going to create a curriculum and we can do classes. So we did that in 2020. And so I'll give the link to you, Latrice, to make sure that you add it to the information here for folks. But it's myrealestatebootcamp.com. And it's basically a 15-part course. There also is an opportunity there to be mentored. So if you're ready financially, like we'll do a financial readiness worksheet, and we'll let you know if we feel that you're ready to start investing on that day. And then there is a mentorship tab that you can select that where we take you from looking for a property, determining if the property is a good investment property, all the way to finding lending. We have a Rolodex of lenders that we use that are able to help you to close on your homes. Then we also have documents and processes that we can help you put in place for property management. So basically from the startup of you looking for a property to you closing, that mentorship opportunity really helps you to get all the way through that process with someone really holding your hand. We help you to look at contracts. We help you to make the right decision with giving an offer and setting your price when you get ready to rent the property out. That's another option there, but there's a full curriculum that's shown on that website that you can choose any of those tabs and sign up for class for any of those classes. Are the first two classes are basically the basics of real estate, the nomenclature, the names, and the words that are used in real estate. So if you're talking to a realtor, or you're talking to a developer and they're starting to use these acronyms and you don't know what they are, it's going to be hard to have a conversation with them because you don't know what these real estate terms are. So it goes through that, goes through the 8 different types of real estate that people are talking about, like fix and flip, buy and hold, and the BRRR strategy and wholesaling. So it goes through all of those so you have a good foundational understanding about real estate. There's another one that talks about how do you become your own property manager. There's another one that talks about how do you choose a home. So we have a metric that we use to determine if a house is going to be a good investment or not. And so we share that with you there. There's one that we open up our portfolio where you're able to look at what we have, you look at what our revenues are, you look at how we're structured as a company. There's one fun one that I love that's called Ask Us Anything. It's a power hour. So some people are like, I went to this conference, the conference was whatever amount of money, and I walked away with more questions than I have answers. And I really want to have my questions answered. So there's a power hour that you can sign up for. And in that, we just literally take that hour and answer any questions that you might have about real estate. And so, yeah, so that curriculum and that opportunity to teach people about real estate really came from not having a lot of time. Our kids at the time, when COVID hit, all the schools were closed. So I was at home still working my position and having a first grader and a fourth grader. And I'm trying to teach my fourth grader the new math. If any of you are parents, y'all know about the new math. Okay. The new math is not the math that I went to school with. We did really well. So in 2020, like I said, we started this coursework and that's done really well. And so now I'm starting to do some workshops that we're traveling with. So potentially we'll have a workshop in Chicago. We have one coming up in South Carolina. We have one lined up for Georgia. We have one in North Carolina. And so we're going to be traveling with workshops, and these workshops will help you to determine your investment readiness, if you will. It also will help you to get really insight about how do you get started with real estate. And the best ways, if you don't have a certain amount of money to invest in a property, there are lots of other ways that you can invest in real estate that are not tied to a property. So I know there was a lot, but
Yeah, I want to actually go back all the way to
yes,
the
yes.
beginning when you were asking these people and people were giving you all the reasons to not do it. What helped you not give up and not be discouraged by all the naysayers? Like, and what would you tell somebody now?
My husband and I, we read quite a bit. And so one thing that we have always known was at that time, being a millionaire was a big deal, right? Now being a billionaire with a B is a big deal. So at that time, every millionaire that was being talked about in the media, any millionaire who owned a company, every single one of those millionaires owned property. Every single one. Now, if you look the same, if you look at every billionaire owns property. So we felt like if billionaires and millionaires they see the importance of owning property, we need to stick with it. So that was kind of what helped us to stay encouraged and helped us to push forward and try to get more information. I think one of the first books that we read was called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And it helped us to, it's like a classic. So many people have read this book, but that was one of the first financial books that we read, and it made us think very differently about real estate. I'll give a link to that too here. So and potentially we can give away a book. I have some of these books that I can give away to people if they sign up for our newsletter. But that book was fantastic. It helped us to look at finances differently. It helped us to look at real estate differently. Our approach to finances changed. So that was really pivotal for changing the way that we look at finances.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, because a lot of times people will get that first no, and then they just give up and they think, and I ran into a lot of people just even when
Yes.
buying the first house, I can never buy my first house. Even myself, when my dad first came to me and said, you need to buy a house. I was like, I can't buy a house, but I was fortunate enough
Hmm.
to have someone in my family to
Yeah.
say that you can and to do it.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
always good about that.
Yeah. Having an encouraging partner. If I was married to someone who did not like business or
Mm.
who was not into real estate, this would be really difficult to do. It would be difficult to stay encouraged as well, right? And so,
Absolutely.
because we both are very much invested in real estate and we both love it so much,
Mm.
it ends up working out beautifully for us as a couple because he does more of the corporate acquisitions, and then I do the buy and hold or fix and flip kind of acquisitions.
So talk a little bit about that and figuring
Hmm.
out what your different roles are and that
Yeah.
part. So
Hmm.
you're not clashing and you're supporting each other in your dreams.
When we started out, we both were doing acquisition, just means the purchases. So we both were doing the purchases of the houses and of businesses. And then he was doing property management of his properties, and I was doing property management for mine. And we did that for a couple of years. He hates property management. He hates it. He hates it. He hates it. But I have processes that I use that make property management really easy for me. So we vet the potential tenants. They have to fill out application forms. They have to go through the processes to be, and I'm actually property manager for other people's properties that have investment properties that they don't want to manage. But I have a process in place that makes it easy for me. So once I've vetted that tenant and I've looked at we don't really do pull credit and stuff anymore because everybody's credit got wonky after the pandemic, but we do background checks. We do references. They have to provide references. They have to provide the name of a past landlord for us as well. And we reach out and contact those people. So once that tenant is really vetted and we feel really good about that tenant, most of the time our tenants are in their properties between 3 to 10 years. Some of them much more long term than that. And I think I might have, over the 20 years of being in this business, I might have had to do one eviction. And so that comes with the territory. There are going to be some people that don't want to pay or have run into issues with paying their rents. But for a 20-year track record, that's pretty good. But it's because I do a lot of that on the front end. I think that when you're a property manager, you have to have good rapport with your tenants. You have to talk to them like they're people, because they are people. They are just like you. And so for Christmas, I send them things in the mail for Christmas. Usually when they first move into the homes or the apartments that we are renting out, I send them a welcome mat to go in the front of their house. And I also send them a gift card. If they have a baby or something, I'll send them something for their baby or a grandbaby. So I think it's important to be connected to the tenants, because the more you're connected to them and the more they feel like you're a real person like they are, the easier it is to build relationship and stay and get fellowship with each other. Yeah.
Absolutely. Goes back to the relationships you were talking about.
Yeah. 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 So he ended up doing what he does well, which is spreadsheets and data.
Mhm.
So he's a guru with that. Okay. Then I took over more so working with the tenants and the large lease agreements. I took over more of the contract review and those things.
Mhm.
Hmm.
This is a detour, but working with your spouse. Some people say,
Hmm.
I could never work with my spouse. Any tips or tricks for working with your spouse?
I think that you have to have good communication with each other. So we once a week we have a business meeting, just like a regular meeting about what's going on with the businesses. So we have that once a week. We
Mhm.
set aside an hour to have that discussion. And the rest of the time we don't talk about business. I think what happens is with couples, you're constantly talking about business. So then you never really get to the business of just living together and being married, right? So you can lose yourself, because with business owners, you never turn off. You wake up in the morning, you're thinking about your business. You go to sleep at night, you're thinking about your business. So you never really get a chance to turn off when you own your own business. If you have a 9 to 5 job, you go to work, and when you get home, you can go and wash your clothes and fix dinner for the family. But as a business owner, when I get off of my 9 to 5, I'm walking right into my next set of responsibilities as a business owner.
Right.
And so I would say, if you're working together with your spouse, if you're doing a home business or whatever, home-based business, set aside a time that is strategically meant to deal with business things.
Mhm.
So if first thing in the morning is better for you, have a meeting on Monday morning between 8 and 9. Then the
Mhm.
rest of the week, unless something comes up that is a red flag or something that comes up that is urgent that you have to take care of, The rest of your time, you should be able to talk about things that are marriage related or family related or children, that kind of thing. Your regular 9 to 5, how'd your day go today? But if you don't turn off that your private business or your entrepreneurial piece of yourself, if you don't turn that off, it's always on. And that can really drive a wedge between husband and wife, and also can take out all of your interest for being intimate because you're always talking about business. And although being a businesswoman is a sexy thing and it's beautiful, your husband or your wife doesn't always want to have to talk about house closings or contracts. That's not what you want to do when you're married. So I would say set up a time where you both that you have time to talk about just business, and then leave it there. And then if you have something else that comes up, talk about it next Monday.
That is absolutely
Yeah.
advice. I love that. Thank you for sharing that. So
Oh, you're welcome.
we're getting close to an hour, and I try to keep it at 30 to 40 minutes, but I do want to talk about one of your other businesses, the Dr. Topics Oils. And I know that you have hair growth, hair care, skin care product, and then you also do consultations. So talk to us a little bit about that.
Yes.
that business.
I actually got into Dr. Topic Oils. It wasn't really a company that I set out to create. Way back, oh my gosh, like 14 years ago, it was at a doctor's appointment for thyroid. I was feeling really tired and just didn't have a lot of energy. At the time, I didn't have any children. So I went to this doctor, and then they were trying to figure out what was going on. They tested my thyroid levels, because one of my mentors said, get your thyroid checked. Your thyroid could be the issue. And so I went to this doctor, they did this test, and they found out I had a thyroid nodule, which is like a little lump on your thyroid that's in your neck. And so it was big enough that they needed to do a biopsy. So of course I'm terrified, thinking, oh my God, it's going to be cancer. It's going to come out to be something terrible. So they did the biopsy. The cells came back normal. He said, the doctor was like, your cells are completely normal. Because we have this thyroid here, there's a medication I'm going to prescribe for you, levothyroxine. And that medication is used to help you to regulate your thyroid levels. And I had never really been on medication. I wasn't on blood pressure, cholesterol, none of that stuff. I've always been pretty healthy with my eating and pretty healthy with walking and trying to exercise. And so I was really nervous about taking it, because I'd heard that once you start this medication, you really are literally on it the rest of your life. And so I shared that concern with this doctor, and I said, I haven't had children yet. I don't want to take something that's going to mess with my hormones. And so I asked, I've heard some things about essential oils, how essential oils can be used for healing and they can be used for treatment. And he was like, I'm going to give you a prescription because you do have an issue with your thyroid. He said, but I see nothing wrong with you looking into other options and seeing what they do. Nothing by mouth. He said, I wouldn't recommend you take anything by mouth, but something topical. And I said, that's more so what I'm looking for, something topical. So I started my journey with essential oils then. So I literally just bought a bunch of books and started devouring information about essential oils, about the vibrational frequencies of these oils, what they do in the body, what they do to the organs, the organ systems, all those things. And I just dove into it. And maybe a month or two after of getting this diagnosis, I made a little formula of an essential oil blend that was supposed to fortify and keep your thyroid healthy, a thyroid blend. And I have been using that thyroid blend from then until now, and my thyroid levels are normal. I still have a nodule still there, but I have not had to take any medication. Now, I'm not telling you to get off of your medication. So let me just preface it by saying that I'm not telling you to go and stop the medication that your doctor gave you, because your doctor gave you that because you needed it. For me, using that thyroid blend helped me to understand that there is power in using essential oils and using natural formulas. That was 14 years ago. And so in 2020, I started to get these calls from people and say, hey, they were saying, hey, I went through COVID. My hair is coming out of handfuls. I don't know what's happening. It might have COVID hair loss. Other people call and say, I just had a baby. Postpartum, I'm depressed. My hair is falling out in handfuls. Do you have anything? I heard that you make some essential oils. At the time, I was making like some creams for my daughter's hair, and I was making some sprays for her scalp and stuff like that, just dabbling around with just my own family, some stuff for her eczema, that kind of thing. And the pandemic was really when most of the products that we have now were created. It had a mom that called and said, hey, my son has ADHD. He's on 5 different medications and he's still spiraling when something happens that really catches him off guard. Do you have anything natural for that? Another person called and said, hey, I have arthritis, I have pain in my ankles and knees, but I don't want to take anything by mouth. My doctors told me don't take any NSAIDs or any ibuprofen because I have heart issues. Do you have anything for that? Another person called and say, my libido is really low. We're married, but I just don't feel like being intimate with my husband. Do you have anything for that? Other people call for formulas for stress and anxiety. So we have one that's called Awake Libido Boost that's made with ashwagandha, that's been touted in the news and touted in research articles about it being really great for overall health. And so this is made with ashwagandha. It helps with stress, anxiety, and insomnia. So we ended up with, 30 or 40 formulas that we created between 2020 and 2022. And each formula was created because someone called me with a need. Someone also called and said, hey, my husband, everybody's growing a beard during the pandemic, but my husband's beard is patchy and it doesn't look good. Do you have anything to help him to grow his beard in? So it just really evolved from clients and people and family and friends, people calling me to ask me if I could create something for them. And so that's how Dr. Topic Oils was created. And so I'm so grateful because I've always believed that our bodies, how people say things are baked into the pie. If you remember when you were little and you would scrape your knee, just magically in 2 weeks, your knee would get a scab. And then after that would go away, then it would just be smooth and it would start to heal and the color, your melanin would come back in because God baked healing into the pie. He bakes healing into our bodies. But I feel like sometimes we don't eat well. We sometimes don't drink enough water. Sometimes we don't exercise. Sometimes we don't take good care of our mental health. All those things are all connected. So when we take care of those things, I think our body can then heal itself properly. And so that's really the mantra for Dr. Topic Oils, is that we truly believe that God has already baked healing into the pie. And so if we can create something that is natural and gentle and works gentle with your body to be able to give you that symptom relief that you're looking for, that's our secret sauce.
Wow, I didn't know all of that. That's incredible. I knew some of the products, but I didn't know all the products. So
Yeah.
that is amazing that you're able to do that and come up with those formulas. And we could have a whole another
I
discussion
know.
on the process of that.
Mm-hmm.
But we won't today. But I do want to. So our topic with yours was overcoming
Yes.
but when life throws you a curveball,
Yeah.
overcoming that. So I just want to wrap up with any words of encouragement or thoughts that you have. You've overcome so many things, just a couple of things that you've shared, but just in life,
Yeah.
like you said, life in general, overcoming those obstacles and still
Mm-hmm.
achieve success. So
Yeah.
any closing comments or words of encouragement that you'd like to share?
Yeah, I think you have to be gentle with yourself. I think that is one thing I have learned over the years. I give everybody else the benefit of the doubt. I'll say maybe they didn't mean that, or maybe they were having a bad day, or maybe she needs to take a nap. I'll do that all day for everybody around me. But I don't often give myself those same opportunities. I don't give myself that same grace. Let me say it that way. And so I'll say to people who might be trying to overcome an obstacle, to give yourself some grace. You've gone through a rough moment. You've gone through a rough patch. You've gone through a rough experience. Give yourself some grace. Give yourself some grace. Let yourself off the hook. If you didn't get it right today, it's okay. If you didn't say what you need to say to your children and you might have not said it how you wanted to say it, or said it with a harsher tone than you wanted to say, you can apologize. The same with friendships and relationships and mothers and fathers. I would say that would be number one, is to be gentle with yourself. The second thing I would say, my relationship with God has really kept me solid and kept me focused and kept me encouraged. So I think if you don't have a personal relationship with your creator, when you look at a vessel that's sitting on the table, it could be a flower pot, it could be a pencil holder, but no one really knows what you were created for. Every person has a purpose. No one here is on this earth by chance. So if you never ask your creator what you were purposed for, you're living life aimlessly, just checking off boxes and going about your business. But once you are sure about what you were created to do and what the creator meant for your life, it's much easier to walk that path and know that you're walking a walk of purpose. So that would be number two. And my third tip would be keep your family close. We need community. God did not put us on this earth to do life by ourselves. So there's so many people that'll say, "Oh, I could do it by myself. I don't need a man. I could do it by myself. I don't need my family. I could do it by." You can do it by yourself. But when you get to that point that you have completed that task and there's only you standing there, sometimes it could be a really lonely place. So I will say, if you have stressed relationships with your family members, your husband, wife, kids, children, aunts, uncles, cousins, whoever, if you have relationships that need to be healed, give some time to that. Give some space to that. Ask God to show you how to heal, you can be a conduit for healing, but also how you can provide space for the people to heal that are around you, an opportunity to heal those relationships. So community is really super important to being fulfilled, to feeling fulfilled. So those are my 3 tips.
Wow, thank you. So giving yourself some grace, having a relationship with your creator, and then relationships, your family, and building those
Yeah.
relationships. Those are 3 points. I think my favorite thing you said today, you said so much, so never mind, I'm not even gonna start with favorites, but you've given a lot of gems today. So I really appreciate you taking the time to come in and talk. And I think you told me you're going to do an opera.
I started back singing this year. I haven't sang in a very long time. I sing at weddings and stuff like that, but singing like classical music, it's definitely a lot more energy, time, and effort that goes into that kind of singing. And so I just recently started back taking lessons, and I want to do a recital this year. So I'm super excited about that. So I'm looking for venues, and I'm going to be planning that out pretty soon.
Okay, well, make sure you share with us so we can
I will do that.
support you.
Yeah,
So,
and I just say thank you so much for the opportunity for people to come on and talk about make their move, how they made their moves, and to be transparent and show up as their authentic selves. I think that's so important, to have a platform to be able to just be yourself, not pretend to be someone else, and then for someone else to be able to listen to it or look at it and say, I relate to what she said, or this really was a nugget that I can chew on for this week. So I'm so grateful for you providing the opportunity.
and I'm grateful for you for bringing your story and your life and sharing with us today. So I'm very appreciative and excited. This was, when I came up with it, it was also an opportunity for me to get out of my comfort zone. So
Yes.
I'm not the social media person, but I've got to do that and to continue to grow. So, and somebody has told me once before that, or several times before that, you have your people and you are doing a disservice when you don't share, because maybe you may be the only person that could get this information across. So that's why I try to think of those things when I'm out here sharing information.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you. I look forward to continuing to work with you. I put in both the real estate website as well as the Dr. Topics Oil website, and look forward to partnering with you and working with
Absolutely.
people in real estate and just continuing to grow. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Everybody have a wonderful Monday. Be sure to make your move, whatever it is that you're thinking about that you want to do, make your move. So have a fabulous Monday, a fabulous week.
Thank you. You too. Bye.